And I know that you can't tell everybody these incredibly personal, difficult things, but think if everybody knew that, what our worship would be like. It would blow the roof off the building. If we could find some way to share people's stories.
Hey, welcome to the Ministry Mix podcast, where we're bringing you real conversations for the souls and strategies of ministry leaders. My name is Phil Gifford, and I'm joined by my co-host, Richard Pope.
Hello.
Whether you're a seasoned pastor or ministry leader or just stepping into leadership for the first time, we're here to share stories, insights, and practical tips to help you lead strategically while caring for your soul. Each episode dives into topics that matter for your mission, your calling, and your personal growth. Today, we've got a guest that Richard is going to introduce to talk to you about storytelling.
So we're super excited to have a good friend of mine, Tony Hudson, on the call. Tony works for the North American Mission Board, and he has an official job title, but it's not as fun as what I'm going to say. Tony is a storyteller.
Yeah.
And honestly, Tony and I connected over a story. So Tony made a podcast for the North American Mission Board called Terminal, which was about our church planting journey and me being really bad at living and getting terminal cancer. And then there was a follow-up episode about me being really bad at dying and still living. But what I love about Tony is Tony, I've watched you interview tons of my friends, especially, and you lean in with every single person. And Tony's incredibly gifted at asking questions in a way that pulls the best of the best from a conversation. And then, I remember sitting with Peyton, and I don't even know if I told you this, Tony, when we were listening to the demos of the podcast episodes. I remember just listening to the way you pulled it all together. And I was listening to Tony, just narrate the story. And it wasn't just the way you cut and spliced. It was the way you presented the story. I remember getting asked by a pastor friend of mine, hey, did you feel like you were commercialized? Did you feel, when the podcast came out, did it feel gimmicky? And I remember saying, no, I felt like my friend told my story well. You know what I mean? So I'm super grateful for you, Tony. I'm super excited for our people who listen to this get to hear you. Tony, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do and all that?
Yeah. Well, you make me sound so much better than what I really am. About myself. I'm an old man. I have two grown children who are pretty awesome and a wife who is even awesomer. I started professionally. I started in television news. Quite different than working at the North American Mission Board.
Yeah.
Back during the first Reagan administration, that should tell you how old I am and how long I've been doing this.
29.
Yeah, pretty old. And went from there, worked there many years, and then came to what was then the Home Mission Board. If anybody's listening and has been a Southern Baptist long enough, you remember what the Home Mission Board was. We became the North American Mission Board, left there for a couple of years, went to work at Smearton's Purse. Got a lot of cool stamps on the passport and told more stories, and then came back to NAM, where I've been for, a long time now, 17 years. So,
wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stories built up there.
Yeah. So, Tony, the reason I brought you on was, one, to show you my dinosaur rubber ducky, but two, I think that for ministry leaders, not just pastors, but ministry leaders, being able to tell stories effectively dramatically increases their ability to do healthy ministry. I think fundamentally the job of ministry is to tell the story of Jesus and then invite others to expand the story of Jesus by sharing the gospel. And you are, and I'm not just saying this, you are the best storyteller I know. So if you were talking to a ministry leader, young pastor, young lay leader, deacon, whatever in the church, and they said, Tony, how do I tell a good story? What would you tell them?
Well, it depends on how much time they have.
We have 20 minutes.
Got 20 minutes. Okay. The first most important thing, if anybody gets this, then I guarantee you everything will take care of itself. And that's fall in love with the story that you're telling. Fall in love with the person whose story you're telling.
Wow.
If you get that, I guarantee you everything else will fall into place, because your heart, your just everything in you will just follow. I mean, that's kind of scriptural, I guess. I mean, we follow our heart. That sounds kind of American Girlish or something, I guess. But if you'll recall, before we told your story, I spent a lot of time with you doing stuff that had nothing to do with telling your story. I flew up there.
Yeah.
2 or 3 days with you and Peyton. Took you out to eat a couple times, had some really good food.
Yeah, we did.
And just got to know you and became your friend. And you just can't tell somebody's story if you don't like them.
Wow.
I really believe that. And, I've worked for NAM for a long time. And, I tell lots of missionary stories, and I mean, you don't always hit it off with every person that you meet.
Right.
But I have to find something I love about that person, because if I find something I love about that person, a good story is just going to follow. You can't help it. And it has nothing to do with being a good storyteller or a bad storyteller. You love to tell the story about things that you love.
Wow.
So, I had a friend, a coworker one time who said, you don't need to send a teenage girl to a class to teach her to talk about her boyfriend. That, and actually she was talking about that as she was talking about evangelism. She was saying, you really, once somebody finds Christ and they really find Christ and Christ changes their life, that's enough. That's enough. And it's the same as telling a story. Once I get to know you and I love you and I love your wife, that's enough. Everything else is going to follow from that.
I think if I could just double tap, zoom in on something, that was good. You have to love someone to tell their story. Fundamentally, if you are preaching the gospel, I hope you love Jesus. But man, I think when, me and Phil both work with church planters now, I've met planters who it did not seem like they were excited about planting. And I've met planters who were willing to cut their arm off and walk through hell to plant that church. And I've always been more impressed by the ones who loved their work. That's good.
Well, yeah, I just think about that as a driving factor, even when you love the person you're telling the story about and the story, it's going to drive curiosity. It's going to drive your desire to paint them in the best, to get it right, to value that person. And it's interesting. This is going right toward ministry leaders. And it's funny because yesterday I had a conversation with one of our key ministry leaders, and he's like, we've got to find a better way to capture the stories of the way God is working in our congregation today. What's that venue look like to capture the way God is working in real time? And as a pastor, if you love your people, then I think you're going to want to love and learn their stories. So, man, that's worth the podcast right here. So first and foremost, love. That's a great point. What else would you tell them? Or is there anything you want to piggyback on before we move to a next idea? Any piggyback thoughts?
There's one. It's a quote that actually I'm a collector of quotes. I got in my notes on my phone. I have just cool quotes that I find, and there's a quote from Socrates who said, "Those who would change the world must first change themselves," which I think kind of follows along with the whole heart thing. If who I am, if I love Richard, it's everything else is going to follow from that.
Yeah.
So.
Can I, before we pivot to the next thing, can I ask that follow up? You touched on this a little bit, going to tell missionary stories. There are missionaries you try to tell a story that you don't love. How do you, if someone is just not naturally easy to fall in love with, or if they're just not actually, maybe from you as a storyteller, how do you work toward loving that person and learning that person? What are some of the ways that a person can lean in?
I'm not a pastor,
especially if you don't care for them.
I am not a pastor, but I think it's really the same answers that you would give to someone if they're not even charged with telling somebody's story. How do you learn to love people that are hard to love? There are people in your family. There you have people that you work with. You have people out on the road that would not get out of my way this morning as I was trying to come into the building. How do you learn to love those people? That's not something we can gin up on our own. We wouldn't need the gospel. It's prayer. Just practically speaking, if I get on a plane and I fly somewhere and I'm going to do a video story about a missionary and we just don't hit it off, I really have to be intentional about thinking, okay, what do I love about this person? Okay, this person left their family and their friends and they moved to this city where they don't know anyone and they're planning a church and they might be hard to get along with, but man, they are so brave and so courageous to do this thing for the sake of the gospel. I love that about them.
Wow.
And I just got to keep telling myself that over and over and over again sometimes. It's just the way it is. I mean, we just don't hit it off with everybody.
Yeah. And I'm guessing that's probably on the rare side too, though, to be fair.
I've been here at the board for over 30 years. I could probably count on one hand.
Yeah.
The number of times that's happened.
Gotcha.
And I do 50 stories a year.
Wow.
So yeah, it's very rare.
Cool.
Yeah. I'm still stuck on that quote. I just want to put that on a t-shirt. And then hand that out to every person I meet who preaches the gospel and be like, you got to love Jesus. Tony, can I ask a follow-up question on that? I think loving people can be easier at times than loving organizations or loving groups of people. For me, it can be easier to find the positive in a single than in multiple. When someone is telling a story about a group, what if they really just don't care? I would wonder, should they even tell the story? Do you know what I mean?
What I would say, find another story.
Yeah.
I mean, there's enough good stories out there. You can always find a story about something that you care about and that you love.
Gotcha.
It's not too hard to find them. They're out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never preached. Actually, okay, I can think of twice in my life where I've preached a sermon. Both times it was kind of against my will. But yeah, just there's enough out there. Just find something that you really care about and that you're passionate about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So once you've got step one, fall in love with the person in the story, what would some of the other advices you would give to someone learning to tell stories?
I think when you figure out what's the story I want to tell, okay, this story I want to tell, there's a term we use in writing. It's called a commitment. It's different from a pastor's term of commitment. Commitment, when you're writing, is your story boiled down to one sentence. Every story can be boiled down to one sentence. No matter how complicated, no matter how long, no matter how many steps or chapters, you can always boil a story down to one sentence. If you've heard Terminal, Richard's podcast, the commitment for that, I know it because I wrote it and I put it on a Post-it note on my desk and I had it in front of me the whole time I was putting that story together.
I bet I could name it, but I'll let you say it.
Richard suffers, but God is good. That was the commitment. And his whole story could be reduced down to that one line.
Wow.
And that's important. And you have to know it. And I put it on a Post-it note and keep it in front of me the whole time, because otherwise I'm going to go off on all different kinds of bunny trails. And you're going to go here and you're going to go there. And, this is an important little thing to tell. I think I'll tell about this part of the story. Well, it doesn't have anything to do with the commitment. And it's not something that's going to really kind of drive you towards where you want to get to. And I think, like I said, I'm not a pastor. I don't preach, but it would be really interesting, especially if it's a story that you're really passionate about somebody that you love or about something that you love, to just go on and on and on and on and go left and go right and go up and go down and go all over the place. And before you know it, you've been preaching for 45 minutes and you've never really hit the point. So man, keep the commitment always in your brain and always just stay as close to that as you possibly can.
Wow. So that the commitment would be just a summarization of the story in that one phrase or that one sentence.
I'm learning more about preaching from
I know
these two sermons than I did in seminary.
This is a preaching. This is a preaching
doctorate in preaching.
Well, yeah, he's talking
Give it to Tony.
I can't give doctorates, but I do think there is a preaching element where they talk about the big idea. If you can't name the big idea of your sermon in one sentence, you can't preach it.
I think if the crowd can't name the big idea in one sentence, you didn't preach it.
Wow. Because everything informs that big idea in a good sermon. Right. Everything points to that big idea. So, Tony, in Richard's story, what helped you get to that phrase, that commitment?
Well, first, it took a lot of time getting to know him. You got to know the story first before you can come up with what your commitment is. And I mean, it's him telling his story, but I mean, it's kind of me telling his story. And so there's a whole lot of responsibility with that. And so, yeah, and actually that commitment came after that was about try number 16 or 17.
Okay.
Because like you said, like I said, it's so hard to want to hit everything and tell everything and, oh, this is great, I got to use this. And it's so easy to go down little squirrel trails. But yeah, you just got to really get to know the story just like the back of your hand before you come up with what the commitment is. Well,
I was going to ask you in the example of Richard, where along the line did you land on that? It sounds like you had lots of different iterations before you got to that. Where was if you kind of think about the development of that story, where was it that clicked, that commitment clicked for you in the progression of your process with him?
Well, that's tough. There is a good bit of Richard's story that honestly I did not know, even though, we'd spent a lot of time together, even before we sat down to interview him. I didn't know until he said it in his interview. Some stuff that was pretty surprising. And I was like, oh, wow, I didn't know that. I got to take a second. And so it was not until, I spent time with him. Then we went back up there. We did the interview. We recorded interviews with everybody. And it wasn't until after I came back home and was going to sit down. Okay, now we're going to start writing a script. Now we're going to start putting a story together. That's when I'm going to come up with, okay, I've got everything. Now, how do I boil that down to 10 words or less?
Gotcha. Very cool. I'm just trying to understand the kind of the brain process behind this for you as the master at this. Like, where does that? You don't go into the story with an idea. You really flesh it out on the backside of kind of the exploration, and then you're kind of almost at this point pulling everything together. You're seeing it all together.
Yeah, back in the days when I worked in TV news, and I think it was just because the timeline of actually putting together a story in TV news was so short. You'd come into work at 9 o'clock in the morning, you'd get a story, you'd go out and you'd have to have it completely done and finished and ready to play at 6 p.m. So you didn't have a whole lot of time. Yeah. So you were always taught in TV news, you come up with a commitment before you go and shoot the story.
Wow.
Which seems a bit backwards to me. Because, well, how do I know what the story is going to be until I actually go and shoot it and hear what people have to say and hear what their stories are? No, we don't have time for that. You got to come up with it beforehand. I understand the reasoning for that. Fortunately, I work in an environment now where that's not as much a necessity, and so we actually talk to someone and figure out what your story is, and then figure out how we're going, what direction we're going to go in.
Yeah. Well, take us from this challenge or the central idea. What would be the next step if you were to kind of lay out your process of storytelling?
I always say begin with the ending in mind. Know what the ending is. Know what the ending is. Yogi Berra, I'm a big baseball fan. Yogi Berra, catcher for the Yankees for many, many years. Also famous for his wild sayings. He said, if you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. Which I think applies to telling a story a lot.
Yeah.
If you don't know where you're going, you'll end up somewhere else. So before I sit down to write, I'm going to figure out what the ending is. I might even write the ending before I write anything else. In a couple of the episodes of Terminal, I did that. I wrote the ending. and kind of wrote the story backwards from the ending. And once again, I'm not a preacher, but I would imagine a lot of times, you're telling a story because you want to get somewhere. That's the whole purpose of telling the story. You want it to take people somewhere.
Yeah.
You got to figure out where that somewhere is first, because that's going to inform everything about how you tell that story.
I would venture to say, in my understanding of preaching, like I want to make sure this is not just about preaching, but most of us write our conclusions as like a slap-on ending after the content's been developed. Like we don't think about the way this lands. At least I don't. Like sometimes I'm just like, okay, here are my main points. Now let's tell them to come to Jesus. But I wonder if we do that backwards.
I think, I'm processing a thought. It's like
I'm literally watching your brain break. I'd like it.
So at Canvas, we have 8 other pastors, 2 interns. We've probably trained 7 dudes, or 7. That's the thing right now.
It is.
I've personally trained 7 of those dudes on preaching.
Right.
Count Andrew Cooper. So 8, not counting church planters I've worked with. One of the things that I read, I won't say who, because it would not be cool in a Southern Baptist circle. I don't care. Rod Parsley, super Pentecostal guy. Listen, I get down with the Pentecostals. You guys know that, though. Rod Parsley said that if your sermon does not start with and end with, what should we do, preacher? Right? It's like you take the text. This is the word of the Lord. And I think that's even more true for expositional preaching. The beginning and the end of the sermon. What should we do, preacher?
Yeah.
I believe that. And I think that's in line with what Tony just said. Like before I work on application, before I pull it together, if a member of my church heard this word, let's say like 2 Samuel 9, my favorite Bible story, what should they do? What I think is interesting is I think sometimes I can become so like, and I think this is true for storytelling in general, not just preaching. I can become so focused on the outcome I want from like sharing that story, sharing that word, that sermon, whatever. I can be so focused on that I can actually like not be faithful. Does that make sense?
You manipulate it, or you
not intentionally, but yeah.
Yeah. Or you just
like, there's a difference between telling a story for the sake of the story and telling a story for the sake of, like, go do something.
What impact do you use, for sure.
So Tony, how do you stay faithful to the story and not get like, do you know what I mean? Like, how do you not do that? Like, how do you prevent yourself from making it what you want it to be, I guess?
Pray. That's kind of an overly spiritualized answer, I guess, but it is what it is. It's at least for me, I have other people read, watch, listen to what I do and what I say and what I write, because they're gonna see it in a way that I don't see it. And that's super important. That's super important. That's something I struggle with. Time, if you have time, that's always a great tool. A lot of times that if I had the time, fortunately with your podcast, I had time where I could write something and then put it aside and not think about it for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, and come back to it. And then it lands totally different after 3 weeks than it did when my brain is just so focused and so just chewing on all that material for 8 hours every day.
Yeah.
It's good. I don't mean to pivot because I'm not sure what Richard told you to prepare for this or not. So I want to ask a question that may be out of line.
Totally unprepared.
Okay, I love this. I love the we.
So are we.
We pride ourselves on natural conversations, which sometimes are unprepared, oftentimes are unprepared. As you think about a church leader, just faithfully serving within their local church, where do you see stories kind of fitting in? Just the daily grind of their ministry leadership, from youth pastor to kids person to nursery leader. Like, how should they be looking for stories and utilizing stories? Kind of two sides of that.
I'm sorry, I was distracted by Richard's duck.
So how can, Richard is a bundle of distraction.
It's just a duck dinosaur.
That makes sense. So like a ministry leader that's just grinding in the church, doing the function of the ministry, but like we just know that stories are important. How should they be utilizing, or what are some ways you see a ministry leader utilizing stories within their ministry and even looking for them and seeing them?
That's tough.
Yeah.
It's like I said, I'm just a dude in the church. I play the keyboard in the band. That's
good for you. I love that.
One thing I will say is that I think stories are really underutilized.
Yeah.
In the church. We've been a part of our church for, I guess, 8 years now, and I still kind of feel like a new guy. I'll tell you this: we have a guy in our church. We have rotating worship leaders, so we have like I think 6 worship leaders in our church, and so they just trade off Sundays. One of our worship leaders, just maybe a month or two ago, I've been playing music with him for the whole 8 years I've been there, but I haven't known the story of his family. And I won't tell you the story. I won't tell you who he is. It's a super private matter.
Yeah.
But I learned the story of his family, and I love playing music with him because of the way he worships. But now, the next time I play music with him, I know his story. And I can guarantee you it's going to be different because he's up there worshiping.
Yeah.
Wow.
When he's undergone some unbelievably difficult circumstances. I can't imagine. And he gets up there and he worships. And I know that you can't tell everybody these incredibly personal, difficult things, but think if everybody knew that, what our worship would be like. It would blow the roof off the building. If we could find some way to share people's stories, because our church, by Atlanta standards, we're not big. By other standards, we're big. We probably have like 400 in worship. If
big, it's Maryland big.
I know. But if everybody knew everybody's stories, I know if everybody knew everybody's business, just think about, what that could be, not just for worship, but the way we encourage each other, the way we, C.S. Lewis had this quote, and I can't quote it exactly, but he said that the beginning of every friendship is, "Oh, you too? I thought I was the one." Just think about if we knew each other's stories.
Yeah.
What that could do. How that would just drive us closer together and be more the church that God intends us to be.
I think that's a great lesson for ministry leaders is you're serving with these people and you're probably within close proximity, and your serving is richer when you know each other's stories, especially in an intimate context of like a worship team. I think what the takeaway I'm walking from away from this conversation is I need to create space and margin with our teams to be story level friendships, not just like show up for practice. Because there's a difference, right? You show up for practice, you do your thing, and you go home. But what does story level friendships look like in the local church? Tony, I got a kind of a follow-up question to you. And as somebody who is a professional story capturer, do you have some go-to favorite questions that move conversations from like, how is the weather? How was your weekend? To like getting to the story? Or is that trade secret questions? I don't want you to give up.
About to say, I'm gonna let you in on all my secrets now. There are some tricks. I hate to use the word tricks. When I interview people, and Richard might recognize some of these.
He's been the recipient of your tricks.
Yes, yes, he has. One thing, don't ask questions, make statements. When you ask a question, there's a little door that goes off in your brain and the person's brain that says, I need to be careful about what I say. Even if it's somebody that you trust, even if it's somebody that you're close to, if it's a friend, there's just a little door. If you make a statement, that little door doesn't shut. I use the example of let's say I'm in an Uber and I'm talking to my Uber driver, and I say, and I just make the statement. I say, hey, I read not long ago that Uber drivers rank number one in job satisfaction of any job in the nation. I was kind of surprised by that.
Mm. Yeah, and it invites conversation, not necessarily probes.
I don't know what he's going to say, but he's probably going to say something really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's actually I'm looking. I actually I have a presentation I'm actually going to be doing this week about interviewing people. I'm looking at this thing. Being silent. A lot of times I did this with Richard.
You did.
He would finish a question. He would finish answering a question, and then I'd just sit there and wouldn't say anything. People don't like silence. They want to fill it. And so they're going to fill it, especially Richard. He's going to fill it.
Hey.
So,
preachers are going to talk.
Exactly. That's what I like about my job. You don't have to make preachers talk. But people are going to fill it. And when they fill it, most of the time they're off script. And when they're off script, that's when they're honest. And that's when you really get to the heart of things.
And I've seen that with, I think I made like seven words in the Terminal podcast in my little lane. And I remember sitting, maybe a whole 2 sentences, but I remember coming to Richard's house, or not Richard's house, Keith's house, and recording that with you guys. And we did our questions. And then at one point we were just sitting around talking, and I saw you or one of your teammates walk over and hit record. I kind of turned the recorder back on in the middle of the flow of that conversation, because the guard was down, the interview fell off, and it was just more fun. And I don't know if anything came out of that, but it was just more, the conversation was different.
Yeah. And everybody I work with who records my interviews knows when I make eye contact with you, that means I want you to go back and start rolling again. So yeah. Another thing I would say is there's this mantra that I repeat to myself every time I'm interviewing somebody, and that's don't be interesting, be interested.
I've read that book. There's a book that comes out of, but it's a great, I've read it. I don't know what it's called, but I've heard that said before. It's so good.
I thought I came up with that myself.
Maybe you did, and maybe somebody stole it.
Maybe you did. But
be interested, not interesting. No, be interested, not interesting. Right?
Yeah. I mean, check your ego at the door. I want to hear from you. You don't need to hear from me.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah. If you're interested in somebody, you're just going to ask press in, and the curiosity there drives that. Some great questions to think about. Tony, we were just about out of time, but I want to ask you one more question, unless Richard has more questions. And this is this. What's been outside of Terminal, because we're not going to ask you that question. That's not outside of Richard's story. What's been one of your favorite stories you've told? And if it's too personal, it's okay not to share. We can just close the podcast out.
Which one of my children do I love the most?
Exactly. I know it's a hard question.
Wow, that's tough. 33 years or something like that. That's really tough.
Maybe I can ask you a different way. What's been one that's kind of either surprised you or caught you off guard?
I will say this, and this is not the answer you're looking for, but it's Richard.
That's okay.
There was a part of Richard's story, which I think I hinted at. I didn't know about his struggles when he was a child.
Yeah.
When he was a young child. Even after all the time we spent together, the first time I heard that was when he hit it in the interview.
Wow.
And I can't think of a time when I've done an interview where I've been so caught off guard.
Wow.
And so I don't know where else to go from here. My brain is totally just shut down.
Wow.
So, and I was talking with Daniel, who was the guy who was recording the audio, and the same way, he was like, man, I was just ready just to stop and just like walk out of the room and just sip for minutes. Yeah. So I'm not caught off guard very often, but that one caught me off guard.
Well, congratulations, Richard. In 30 plus years of storytelling, you broke Tony's brain. Tony, I know this is not, again, man, I got to stop asking follow-up questions, but like, what did you do to get back on track there? Because like, what helped you kind of either get back on track or just press into that moment? When the script changes, like, what happened there?
Press in.
Yeah.
Press in. Go with it. And that's one thing I will say too. You didn't ask this. This is a bonus thing. Listen to people. Listen to what they say. I see people do interviews over and over and over again, and they have a list of prepared questions that they've written out on a legal pad, and it's sitting on their lap, and they're so focused on that somebody says something like something Richard would have said to me in the interview, and it just goes right over their head. Listen to people. Listen to people. And that's just not just when you're doing an interview with them, but when you're talking to them, really listen to them, really look them in the eye and hear what they're saying. You can tell when somebody's not listening to you.
Wow.
And so listen. And I don't remember what your last question was, but
that's okay.
Because I wasn't listening, I guess. I don't know.
Well, here we are. It's all good. Now that you answered that perfectly, I think that's a great takeaway to end this. Ministry leaders, when you're talking to your people in your ministry that you serve with, that you lead, just listen. And that's going to go a long way toward capturing their story and communicating their story. Well, hey, thanks for tuning into this episode of the Ministry Mix podcast. If you found this content helpful, we'd encourage you to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss any helpful episodes like this. If you could, take a minute, leave us a review, give us some feedback so that way the algorithms can push this to other leaders like you. And we'd love to hear from you about topics and conversations. Richard, tell us about all the social media ways that we can connect.
Yeah, so we are launching a Facebook group, and that will have bonus content, conversation prompts, and I'm excited about that. So you can search ministry.mix on Facebook. You'll see a group. Additionally, so maybe you don't have Facebook, we have a GroupMe, and in that GroupMe, there's a general chat that me and Phil will post resources and things to help you think these things through. And then there's also sub chats where you can have conversations. There's one for youth ministry or next gen. There's one for outreach. There's one for just different topics we talk about. So when you join that GroupMe, you get to choose which ones you're in. And you can engage with other ministry leaders just like you. And maybe I'll sucker Tony into being in our GroupMe.
And we'll put all that stuff in the show notes too. So make it easy for you to find it. We'll say, hey, thanks for listening. Connect with us on social. Until next time, keep leading on purpose and caring for your souls.
Bye.